Yes, welcome into Sportsbet Betting Insight today, Tuesday, May 2nd, big game breakdown. Doubleheader again. Can the Celtics go up 2-0? And here we are, Golden State and Utah. You won't believe the series price on this one. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books coming up. We will start here because we made a mistake. We missed something, rather. What did we miss yesterday, Teddy? We missed a brutal beat.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been the bad beat of the year. And the stupid thing was, I was like, I got to put it in the show notes. Then I spaced and forgot. But this beat was so bad, we had to talk about it. Saturday, Seattle and Cleveland. The total bounced between 7.5 and 8. The Mariners scored 3 in the top of the first. The Indians scored 4 in the bottom of the first. So you got over 7.5 or over 8 in your pocket. It's 4-3 after 1. Final score, 4-3. Game stays under. Mariners didn't get another hit. Gallardo threw 38 pitches in the first, gave up 3 hits and 3 walks, dominated the rest of the way. Everybody gets shut down. You score 7 in the first and can't get over 7.5. That is as bad a beat as you'll have all year in MLB. Brutal for anyone that had Seattle-Cleveland over on Saturday.
Yeah, I know it was Saturday, but thanks for bringing that up. That's the mother of all bad beats. How about some bad bets? So here's one. The steam on the Spurs. Oh, boy. Bet up from 4.5 to 6, and they opened minus 205 in the series price. Before tip, I saw 310 in faraway places. You might want to time to hit the panic button, I think, if you laid that.
Well, probably. And again, this is something that you and I talk about a lot here on Sportsbet. We're Houston believers. And we talked about how the Rockets, I mean, look, this game was over in the first quarter. You know, they went up double figures in the first quarter, was 69-39 at halftime. The Rockets spread the floor. They forced the San Antonio Bigs way out of their comfort zones on defense. They had 12 made three-pointers by halftime. And remember, against OKC, Houston, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, just 48 of 169 on three-pointers in that series. In 4 of the 5 games, they finished well below their season average from three-point range. When this team makes shots, they're really tough for anyone to deal with. San Antonio found that out last night, and Spurs backers on the wrong end of the series price and certainly on the wrong end of the line move yesterday. As you mentioned, that game bet up from 4.5 to 6 by tip-off. Money went the wrong way.
Yep. Also, something we discussed on the show, 2 things on the show. What happens if Houston shoots the 3 like they're capable of? You saw what happened last night. And this was a cause for concern, too. Ryan Anderson got the best of LaMarcus Aldridge.
Aldridge is having a rough play. Aldridge had a rough year. Aldridge had like everything since coming to San Antonio has been a little bit rough. Aldridge was the guy in Portland. He went to the Spurs thinking he was going to be the guy there. Hasn't worked out that way for him. And obviously last night, not a good effort and out of his comfort zone on Z. You don't want, on defense, you don't want LaMarcus Aldridge trying to stop anybody out at the three-point line.
Yep. Bad bets continue. How about a 40-cent move on the Yankees? Severino didn't have much.
No, and I mean, bettors were all over Severino this year. And, you know, they've also been all over fading the Blue Jays this year. Yankees, as you mentioned, 40-cent line move, but normalcy returned. Severino only had 3 strikeouts of the 27 batters that he faced, and he got tagged for a pair of home runs, and plus some normalcy for Toronto. Jose Bautista, 92 at-bats to get his 2nd home run of the season. He got one last night. It was a big one as the Blue Jays pulled the upset over the Yankees. It was a good result for the house and bad result for bettors.
And bad for the books. Steam on the Raptors-Cavs game over, 209.5. I saw as low as 208, but up to 211.5. Landed 221. Bombs away for Cleveland. I think they were 14 of 28 from 3 to start out. 30, 32, 34 points in the first 3 quarters before backing off. They got whatever they wanted offensively.
They sure did. Anytime you score 96 in the first 3, under bettors are not looking real good in an NBA game. That was certainly the case for Toronto, Cleveland yesterday with all that over money coming in. A bad result for the house with the Cavs dominating offensive performance. LeBron, 35 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. The team was 14 of 34 from beyond the arc. And, of course, look at the graphic from ESPN Stats and Info. The Raptors have now lost 10 straight Game 1s, breaking the tie with the Kings. A 20-year span for the Kings losing from 1981 to 2001 for the longest such streak in NBA history. This time Toronto wasn't laying. Didn't matter. They still didn't cover the number. in that Game 1 failure. Bad news for the books. Good result here for the bettors.
Well, here's another bad for the books. 40-cent move on the Astros. Astros 5-1 in Lance McCullers starts.
Yeah, and I mean, bettors have been flocking to Lance McCullers in just about every game. Some that we've talked about several times. It was a huge wise guy steam move on Houston yesterday, minus 185 all the way up to minus 2.25, and dominated the game 6-2. McCullers 46 strikeouts versus only 11 walks. Only Chris Sale has more strikeouts so far this season.
All right, up next, big game breakdown, the doubleheader on TNT, and then the deep dive. They're going crazy with Roulette. We'll explain that coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, time for big game breakdown. As always, SBR Odds and Sportsbook Review. Check out the rating guide. Make sure you're betting with the trustworthy shop. Game 2, Celtics and the Wizards. Boston at home again, 5.5, 218.5 the total. Game 1 closed 4.5, 216.5. Celtics won 123-111. Adjusted series price, Boston minus 325. First 350 of the game, 16-0 Wizards. The closing 44 minutes, 123-95 Boston. Celtics got whatever they wanted. Shots weren't falling early. Opened 0 of 8 from the floor, then went 46 of 82 the rest of the way. Even with that poor start, they scored 128.7 points per 100 possessions. Let's put that in perspective, the 128.7. Best offense, Golden State, 113.2. Worst defense, LA, 111. Boston had 32 assists on 90 total shots taken. IT had 33 and 9. Horford, 21 and 10. And Isaiah also coming back from his sister's funeral. Coast-to-coast travel twice in less than a week. Playing on adrenaline. We'll see if he crashes at some point. But it didn't matter Sunday. I don't know if it's going to matter the rest of the series, because we talked about the Wizards 27th in defense post-All-Star break. They can't guard anybody.
Well, I mean, for most of the game, look at the picture. It looked like the Wizards had their backs turned on defense. And we talked about a couple things. That third quarter, where Boston outscored Washington 36-16 and took control of the game. The Wizards were whistled for one foul in that quarter. You give up 36 points and get whistled for one foul. That's not physical defense. And everyone was raining threes for the Celtics. Look, when you finish with 128.7 points per 100 in a game, the best for the season is 113.2 for Golden State. The worst defense is the Lakers with 110.6. And you're 15, 18 points up for that. It tells you, number one, Washington played defense. It also tells you, number two, it was one of those games where everything was falling for Boston. That doesn't necessarily mean it happens twice in a row. Because, going into the game, the Wizards score 111. They're supposed to win. They're certainly supposed to cover having that type of offensive performance. But it didn't matter on a day where everything the Celtics put up, I mean, literally everything seemed to be dropping. But the same issues for the Wizards that we talked about a lot during the regular season, Pauly, they were very much on display in the first round against Atlanta. And they were very much on display when it came to Game 1 at Boston.
Yep, and I know we've talked about the bench. I know Crowder won't continue to shoot like that from three, but again, the Celtics got terrific looks the entire game. And a big problem this year was the bench forced too many minutes on the starters. Look at this graphic, minutes played. Wall was 5th, Beal 18th, Porter 25th, Gortat 30th. The Wizards were the only team to have 4 players in the top 30. And you can see why when you look at the first 3 guys off the bench. Look at this. Game 1, Oubre minus 22 in 25 minutes. Jennings minus 6 in 12 minutes. Bogdanovich minus 15 in 18 minutes. Against Atlanta, Oubre was minus 62. When he was on the floor, they were outscored by 62 friggin' points in 98 minutes. Jennings minus 25 and Bogdanovich minus 10. You see the minutes there as well. And I don't know what you're going to get out of Morris after he left Game 1. He says he's going to play tonight, but that's something to monitor too. Maybe he can re-aggravate that injury.
Yeah, sure. And Bogdanovich, remember, he was minus 10 for that series in Atlanta only because, or in large part because, he was draining everything. There was a couple games where he was a huge offensive juggernaut coming off the bench for the Wizards, and he still finished with a minus for the series in that one. But that minus 62 for Oubre, that's scary, scary numbers for Scott Brooks moving forward. Now, there are issues for Washington for injury. You saw Gortat coming up limping the other day. He ended up finishing the game, didn't look that serious, but it's one of those lingering, nagging injuries from a guy that they absolutely need. Then you have the issue with Markieff Morris. He's not going to be 100%, and he's been struggling throughout the playoffs, but there really is nothing behind him. The Wiz miss. They miss Ian and me. They more than I think the markets appreciate.
I thought he's been cleared. Why didn't he play?
I can't answer that question. He has
That's
not
odd.
been on the floor yet, but he's a guy, again, he's not a big name. He's 10 or 15 minutes. They can get at the center spot or the 4 spot. And, of course, Jason Smith is less than 100%. He's limited because of a strained calf. So you look at Scotty Brooks, quote, Morris had treatments all day yesterday. These are yesterday's quotes, by the way. He had treatments all day yesterday and last night, the same thing this morning. Just see how he feels game to game. I don't want to make any call on anything right now. I just know he's going to get treatments all day today. I'm sure he's going to do the same thing tomorrow. Then here's what Morris said, quote, I'm playing tomorrow. It's final. There's nothing the doctors can say to me for me to not be able to play. Playing is one thing. Being an effective contributor is another. For Washington to hang tough in this game, they're going to need Markieff Morris to have an impact on the floor.
And the best NBA bettor in the world, I thought Haralabas Vulgaris had a good tweet. And it makes sense. The Wizards need to push the ball off misses with John Wall. Other than Westbrook, nobody can go coast to coast in 3 seconds. That would be a key. That's a big weapon they have. We'll see if Brooks can use it. You agree?
No question. I mean, Washington, the problem that the Wizards have, though, is that the Celtics are pretty good at playing at a fast pace, too. And again, it wasn't like Washington had pace issues in game one. There wasn't a half-court game. And it wasn't like they didn't hit shots. They just couldn't get stops. And that may be a problem continuing moving forward.
All right, the second game of the doubleheader on TNT, the late game, live odds, SBR odds, and Sportsbook Review. Jazz and Warriors, game one. Warriors 13.5, 207 the total. You got to be kidding me. A second-round series in the playoffs at William Hill series price, the Warriors are 7,000. You got to bet 7,000 to win 100. Did you see higher at the Westgate?
Yeah, Westgate's minus 10,000 to win 100 on Golden State. So, it brings up a fascinating question. From a power rating standpoint, Utah and the Clips were basically even. You know, so a lot of people had Utah maybe a point better than LA at the end of that series after Blake Griffin got hurt, and that's why we saw in the finale it only went 3.5. Where the line is only sitting at 3.5 in that contest. My question to you, Pauly, is this the same line against the Clips? Are we talking about the Warriors minus 10,000 or minus 7,000 against the Clips, even though that LA is power rated and basically even with Utah?
It'd be higher because of the Griffin injury, and the Clippers were so bad on offense. And the other thing you have to factor in, at least Utah beat Golden State this year. The Warriors embarrassed the Clippers in every game this year, and I think they've won like 12 in a row against them or something ridiculous. So without Griffin, they would have swept them. They probably would have won every game by 25 or 30.
And it's funny because I was thinking that it would have been a little bit in this range, but a little bit lower, maybe the minus 5,000 or minus 6,000 on Golden State, just because even though the Clips haven't made a Western Conference Finals, they are a playoff battle-tested team. Utah is not, and the Warriors are about to show us that Utah is not. Obviously, with the line at 13.5, the markets are not expecting a competitive game one, and with the line at minus 7,000 / minus 10,000 on Golden State, the markets aren't exactly expecting a competitive series either.
So Kerr's out indefinitely, and we'll see if the Warriors come out fresh or rusty. How's it going to be? They could be flat. They lost 105-99 at home, laying 10 against the Jazz April 10th. Everyone but Klay Thompson played. Here's Draymond Green on Kerr. Quote, the way we look at it is plan on him not coming back. That's the way we're approaching this thing. We're not going to sit here and say if we can get to the conference finals, Steve may be back for the conference finals or we get to the finals. Nah, Mike Brown's our coach. We have the rest of our staff, and that's what we're rolling with. We're going to have to hope and pray Kerr gets better and can get back. At the end of the day, his health is more important than anything. End quote. The Jazz beat the Clippers with a bunch of role players stepping up. You're not going to be able to beat the Warriors this way. But they're kind of on a free roll here, too, where absolutely no one expects them maybe even to win a game. I think it'd be an upset if they can even send this thing to 6.
Well, sure. When you look at the price for game one, you know that Golden State's going to be favored by more than 5 in the 2 games in Utah, and assuming that there are only 2 games in Utah, if it goes back to Utah a third time, the Warriors will be favored again in that minus 6 range one would expect. And we think about the Warriors, they kind of had a perfect ride against Portland. They got tested a little bit, but not so much where it wore them down. They had time to adjust to Mike Brown being in charge. And they also got Kevin Durant back on the floor. 56 game minutes, not a ton, but enough. And of course, Durant, very effective. 16 to 27, 14 rebounds, and 3 block shots. So when we look at Portland and the setup, we look at Golden State and the setup for this game, it certainly sets up pretty well for them. But when we look at the Utah side of the equation, it is kind of like a free roll here for the Jazz. And it's very key when you're talking about big underdogs in any sport, but in the NBA in particular. There are 2 different types of teams. A, teams that go in thinking they can win. They're going to play hard early, but once they can't win the game anymore, you know what? Those type of teams tend to lose focus and get blown out. Teams that don't expect to win, all right, those teams tend to keep a better focus when they do fall behind, and they have the potential to stay alive and come in through the back door. So what's the Jazz mindset? Are they going into this game thinking they can win, or are they going into this game hoping they can compete? Well, Quinn Snyder wrote one word on the chalkboard in the locker room prior to Game 7 at LA. That word, quote, compete. Just saying.
This has become a story now, and it's unfortunate. New SportsBit feature, want to know why? Matt Barnes said he was hoping to face the Clippers because Salt Lake City has no nightlife. Draymond Green basically said, "You idiot, it's the playoffs. We're not going out partying."
Yeah. Okay. And, of course, the want to know why? You want to know why Matt Barnes has been on 11 different teams since his first game with the Clips in 2003. And, of course, he's also a guy that drove 95 miles to fight Knicks coach Derek Fisher when Derek Fisher was still the coach of the Knicks, when they found out that Fisher was romancing his estranged wife. But Barnes is one of these guys. The talent's never been a question. The mentality has always been a question. So here's his quote, okay? If you're 6'7" and you can run and jump, you can get paid a lot. But you know what? You can also say a bunch of stupid things. Here's what he said about wanting to play. No comparison. There's no such thing, man. There's no nightlife in Utah. Obviously, as players, you want to be able to have a little bit of nightlife, but the main focus is winning games. Me personally, I want to get out there because I want to beat the Clippers. That's my former team and my kids are out there. But as far as nightlife, there's no comparison to nightlife in Utah and LA. Well, guess what? Matt Barnes hadn't played since April 8th because of a sprained ankle. And you wonder, maybe this is a guy that we probably should avoid a microphone right now. Draymond Green is right. You're not supposed to be talking about nightlife in Salt Lake City when you're on a team trying to make a championship run.
Wild there. Unbelievable. Up next, we'll get into Roulette and the deep dive. Some interesting numbers here about how millennials love it. And you won't believe the surge just from last year with what's happened in Nevada. It's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard, at Teddy_covers. Time for the deep dive. And it's going to be a good topic here, a good segment. It's time to talk roulette. And you've seen a huge uptick here. Going back what happened in February, the win from roulette was up almost 59% in Nevada in February compared to the same month last year. The most recent gaming revenue report said this is apparently a big hit with millennials.
Yeah, roulette is the hot game right now. And look, there are a lot of issues when it comes to millennials and Las Vegas casinos. And when you look at the casinos that cater to millennials, Cosmo being your number one, your primary example of a casino that's doing great in all different kinds of ways, except for gaming revenue. They love the nightlife. They love the restaurants. They love everything. But the under 30 crowd, the under 35 crowd, they're not playing the table games. Slots, way down. I'm not talking a little bit down. We're talking way down where they were. But it's not just slots. Blackjack isn't going good. And the 3-card poker type of stuff isn't going good. And craps isn't a riser. But for whatever reason, roulette is the one game that millennials have fallen in love with. You talked about a 59% increase. Year over year, we're talking about 13.5%. Over a 3-month span, you're talking about 8%. Significant changes in the amount of handle that we're seeing with roulette. And in an era where they're taking tables out to put in more restaurants and more bars, they're putting roulette wheels in at a bunch of different casinos.
Yeah, this is a good quote, too. Anthony Curtis, owner of LasVegasAdvisor.com, he's seen an increase in roulette play. Quote, I see more people playing it. I can see far fewer dead roulette tables than I used to. One of the games that for some reason resonating better with the younger crowd, the millennials that all the casinos are trying to get, end quote. You see Venetian Palazzo expanding, going from 5 wheels to 7. And another quote here was, this is interesting. Although roulette is not a skill-based game, players have a feeling that they are responsible for the outcome by placing the bet. Unlike slots, where there's no involvement other than pushing a button. We're seeing that our roulette players' age is skewing a bit younger, so we're seeing an increase in volume and a decrease in the age of the demo playing it.
And there's, that's coming from the director of the Las Vegas Sands. His name's Rob Sinelli, Senior VP of Casino Operations. And that's the mentality right now among the execs. It's like, look, people are liking this game. People are playing this game. And, here's the one more quote from Anthony Curtis. When I'm walking through the casino, there's always a younger customer and a younger crowd at the roulette wheel. It's a hit with the club crowd. Roulette seems to be a cool thing to do before you go into the club, and when they come out, they play. I see them all the time having a few drinks and powering up on the roulette table. And I'll tell you, Pauly, roulette's my introduction to casino gambling. That was my first game that I loved before I really truly understood odds. But I would always come in and play roulette. And the reason why? 35-1 payouts when you hit those numbers on the inside. How about you? What was your first game?
I was minding my own business. The first time I came here, I was eating dinner in the cafe. I come down the stairs on the elevator and I see red had hit 18 times in a row. 3 trips later, the ATM, still didn't see black. And that's when I learned you bet with the streak, not against it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. I got a roulette story. I'm going to save it for another day. But, I can't say it was my first. My first absolute disaster gambling experience came in roulette. It involved multiple trips to the money machine or to the ATM. And it was a situation where I had a system. And it worked every time until it didn't. Let's talk a little roulette strategy here, shall we?
Sure.
Yeah, because if you're going to play roulette, and it's a fun game to play, no question. If you're going to play, know this. Every bet is mathematically the same. Doesn't matter. Red, black, inside, outside, even, odd. You're betting on the numbers. When you have a double zero wheel, there is approximately a 5.2% house edge. When you have a single zero wheel, there is approximately a 2.6% house edge. And it doesn't matter what bet you make. That's the edge for the house. So how are you going to beat that? You're not going to beat that. Well, the way that you can stay alive is first, look for the single zero wheels. The edge is half between and they used to only be in high limit rules. They're not just in high limit rules. In Las Vegas, you can find a single zero wheel at Mirage, at Aria, MGM Grand, all on the floor in the main casino. $25 minimum. Your minimums are going to be a little bit higher, but you're going to cut the house edge in half, Pauly. That's significant.
That's good info there. I didn't even know that. Excellent. Money time.
Yeah. No, just let me do real quick. I want a couple quick points on this. Roulette is a negative expectation game. Therefore, when you are winning, you need to leave. So your concept here is hit and run. You hit your number, you get out of there. You can't stick at the roulette wheel for the next 8 hours and expect to come away with anything. And of course, the other end of that, don't go to the money machine. Set your loss limit. You're going to play with 500? Play with 500. You're going to play with 100? Play with 100. This is not a situation where you can be like, well, let's just give it one more spin. That's how you get crushed. Last but not least, make sure you're getting comp points. They will comp you well for playing the table games. Take advantage of it and get the bonuses that you deserve. That's it. That's my roulette advice.
I know Tony Curtis will definitely recommend that. All right, money time, play of the day. Back to Golden State, Utah. What are we doing, Teddy?
Let's go and take a look at the under. You cashed with the over last night in the Rocket series. Let's go to the under in Utah, Golden State, under 207. The Warriors, number 2 in regular season defense. They held Portland to 96.3 points per 100 in the first round, 5.2 points lower than any other team in that round. Do not expect a shootout. Utah and Golden State, game 1, under 207. That's our play of the day.
think we had the Browns win total over. I think I gave the Rockets out over on the VSiN. Wrong show. The VSiN.
Darn it.
It's all right. No problem.
We should have given out the Rockets over is what we should. But what I say on the Browns, though, I said that number won't be there 24 hours from now. And you know what? It's not. That 4 was gone. So I stand by the advice.
That's it. That'll do it. All right. We'll be back tomorrow. Fun show. Good information. Thanks for watching.